So here we have a path object that represents a directory. A few useful methods that you need to be aware of are exists, that returns a boolean, mkdir to create this directory, rmdir to remove it, and rename to rename it to a new name. Let's say e-commerce 2. Now these are pretty self-explanatory, so in this lecture we're not going to look at these. Instead, we're going to look at another method that is iterdir. With this method, we can get the list of files and directories in this path. So let's print the result and see what we get. We get a generator object. Remember generator objects? A generator object, as the name implies, returns a new value every time we iterate it. So when we're working with a large list of items, instead of storing all those items in the memory, we use a generator object. We iterate it and get a new value every time. This is more efficient. So that's the reason this method returns a generator object, because when working with files and directories, it is possible that we can have a directory with 1,000,000 files in it. So now we can iterate over this, let's say for p, and then print p. Let's run the program. So on my machine, I have 1 file and 3 directories at this path. As you can see, this method returns both the files and directories. Now, if you're working with a directory that doesn't have 1,000,000 files in it, you can convert this generator to a list using a list comprehension expression. So instead of iterating over this generator, we can use a list comprehension, which is pretty similar to what we have here. We add the square brackets and add p here. So p for p in path.iterdir. Now we get all these paths and we can print them. Let's see what we get. We get an array of POSIX path objects. What is this? Well, this path class that we imported on the top, this is the base class for 2 different classes, POSIX path and Windows path. POSIX is the standard used in Unix-like operating systems. So because I'm using a Mac, here we have a list of POSIX path objects. If you're on Windows, you see a list of Windows path objects, okay? Now here we can take this comprehension expression to the next level and apply filtering. Let's say we only want to get the directories. So if p.isdir, you learned about this method in the last lecture, right? Let's run the program. So here are the 3 directories that we have inside of the e-commerce directory, okay? So this method is pretty useful to get the list of files and directories in a path, but it has 2 limitations. One is that we cannot search by a pattern, and second is that it doesn't search recursively. So for those scenarios, you need to use a different method. That is glob. Let me show you. So path.glob, this method takes a pattern, so we can search for all files, or let's say all pi files. Similar to the other method, this returns a generator. So we can use it in an expression like this. P for p in path.glob. Now we get the pi files. Let's print them here. So in this directory, I have only a single pi file. Now to search recursively, we need to change this pattern to something like this. The other option is to use the rglob method. So we remove the pattern and use rglob, short for recursive glob. Now, when we run this program, we get all the pi files in the e-commerce directory and all its children.